When my daughter Natalie stood in my living room, her face red with fury, and screamed, "You took it! You've always been jealous of my happiness, and now you've stolen the one thing that matters most to me." I felt something crack inside my chest. The wedding ring her grandmother had worn for 60 years, the ring I'd promised to pass down through our family, was missing. And in Natalie's eyes, I saw no doubt,
my daughter
no
Natalie
hesitation.
stood in my living
Only
room, her
absolute
face red
certainty
with
that I was
fury,
a
and
thief.
screamed,
"You
stood
took
there,
it! You've always
speechless,
been jealous of
while
my
my own
happiness,
daughter
and
called
now
the
you've
police on
stolen
me.
the
What
one
she
thing
didn't
that
know,
matters
what
most
she'd
to me."
completely
I felt
forgotten
something
in her
crack
rage
inside my chest.
was that 3
the
months
wedding ring
earlier,
her grandmother
she'd
had
made me
worn for
promise
60
something.
years.
A promise
the ring
that would
I'd
change
promised to pass
everything
down
when she
through our
finally
family
remembered
was missing.
If you're watching
and in
this,
Natalie's eyes, I saw
subscribe
no
and
doubt,
let me
no
know
hesitation.
where you're watching from.
Only absolute
Let me tell you
certainty
how
that
a
I
mother's
was a
love
thief.
survived
I
the
stood
worst
there,
accusation
speechless,
imaginable,
while my
and
own
how one
daughter
forgotten
called the police on
conversation
me.
revealed
What she
the
didn't
truth
know,
neither
what
of
she'd
us
completely
expected.
forgotten in
My
her
name
rage
is Caroline
was that
Fletcher.
3 months
I'm
earlier,
61 years old,
she'd
a
made me
retired
promise
elementary
something.
school teacher,
A promise that
and
would
until
change
6 weeks ago,
everything when
I
she
thought
finally
I knew
remembered.
my daughter.
If you're watching
Natalie
this,
is 34, a
subscribe
hospital
and let me know
administrator
where you're
married to a
watching
man
from.
named Brett who
Let me
works
tell
in
you how a
pharmaceutical
mother's
sales.
love survived the
They have a
worst
beautiful home in the
accusation
suburbs,
imaginable.
2 cars,
and how one
and a
forgotten
life that looks
conversation
perfect from the
revealed the
outside.
truth neither of us
But somewhere
expected.
between her
My
childhood
name
and
is
her
Caroline
wedding day,
Fletcher. I'm
something
61 years
shifted
old, a
in
retired
Natalie.
elementary
She
school
became
teacher,
harder,
and until
colder,
6 weeks ago,
obsessed with
I thought
appearances
I
and
knew
status
my
in
daughter.
ways I never
Natalie
taught
is
her.
34.
The
a
ring at the
hospital
center of this nightmare
administrator
was
married
married
to
to
a man named Brett.
My
who
mother,
works in
Catherine,
pharmaceutical
wore it
sales.
every day for
They have a
60
beautiful
years of
home in the
marriage to my
suburbs,
father.
2 cars,
It was a
and
simple
a life that
platinum
looks
band
perfect
with
from
3
the
small
outside.
diamonds.
But
Modest
somewhere
by
between her
today's
childhood
standards,
and her
but it
wedding day,
represented something
something
money couldn't
shifted
buy.
in Natalie.
When my mother passed
She
away
became
5
harder,
years ago, she
colder,
left specific
obsessed with
instructions
appearances
in her
and
will.
status
The
in
ring
ways
was
I
to
never
go to
taught
me.
her. To be
The
passed
ring
to
at the
Natalie
center of this
on her wedding
nightmare
day,
was my mother's,
and then to Natalie's
my mother,
daughter, Catherine,
when the time came,
wore it every
was a
day
family
for 60
legacy,
years of marriage
not just
to my
jewelry.
father.
When Natalie
It was a
got
simple
engaged 2
platinum
years
band
ago,
with 3
she was
small
thrilled
diamonds.
about the ring.
Modest
Not
by
because of
today's
its sentimental
standards,
value,
but it
I
represented
realized
something
later.
money couldn't
But because
buy.
vintage
When my
rings
mother
were
passed away
trendy,
5
she
years
posted
ago,
photos
she
of
left
it
specific
constantly on social
instructions
media,
in her will.
calling it
The
her
ring was to go to
heirloom
me,
piece,
to be passed to
tagging
Natalie
luxury
on her
wedding
wedding
accounts,
day,
getting
and then to
hundreds of
Natalie's
likes
daughter
and comments.
when the time
The
came.
ring became
It was a
part
family
of her
legacy,
carefully curated
not just
image.
jewelry.
When Natalie
wedding
got
itself
engaged
was
2 years
extravagant.
ago,
Natalie
she was
and
thrilled
Brett
about
spent
the
over
ring.
$80,000
Not because of its
on
sentimental
one day.
value,
Money
I
they
realized
didn't really
later.
have,
but because
appearances
vintage
mattered
rings
more
were
than
trendy.
financial
She posted
sense.
photos
I
of
bit
it
my
constantly
tongue.
on
I'd
social
learned years
media,
ago that
calling it
offering my
her
opinion
heirloom piece,
only resulted in
tagging
being
luxury
accused of trying
wedding
to control
accounts,
her life,
getting hundreds
or
of
ruin
likes
her
and
happiness.
comments. The ring
3
became
months
part
ago,
of her
Natalie
carefully
called me on a
curated
Tuesday
image.
evening.
Her
The
voice
wedding
sounded
itself
strange,
was extravagant.
tight,
Natalie
anxious,
and Brett spent
different
over
from her usual
$80,000
confident
on
tone.
one day.
Mom, can
Money
I come
they
over?
didn't really
I
have.
need to talk to you
but
about
appearances
something.
mattered more
Of
than
course,
financial
sweetheart.
sense.
Is everything
I bit my
okay?
tongue.
I'd
She
learned
didn't
years
answer
ago that
directly.
offering
I'll
my
be there in
opinion
20 minutes.
only resulted
When
in
she
being
arrived,
accused
she
of
looked
trying to control her
exhausted.
life,
Her normally
or ruin her
perfect hair
happiness.
was pulled back in a
3
messy
months ago,
bun.
Natalie
She
called
wasn't
me on a
wearing
Tuesday
makeup.
evening.
This
Her
wasn't
voice
the
sounded
polished,
strange,
put-together
tight,
Natalie she'd
anxious,
become.
We sat
Different
at my
from her
kitchen
usual
table,
confident
the
tone.
same table where
Mom,
I'd helped
can I
her
come
with
over?
homework,
I need to
where
talk
we'd
to you
had
about
heart-to-hearts
something.
during
Of
her
course,
teenage
sweetheart.
years.
Is everything
Where we
okay?
used to be close.
She didn't answer
Mom,
directly.
I'll
She
be there in
began,
20 minutes.
fidgeting with her
When
coffee
she
cup.
arrived, she looked
I need
exhausted.
to ask you something.
Her
and I
normally
need
perfect
you
hair was
not
pulled back
to
in a
judge
messy
me.
bun.
I would never judge
She wasn't
you,
wearing
Natalie.
makeup.
What's wrong? This
She
wasn't
took
the
a deep
polished,
breath.
put-together
Brett and
Natalie
I are
she'd
having
become.
financial problems.
We sat at my kitchen
The
table.
wedding put us deep
the
in
same
debt.
table where
The
I
sales
helped her
numbers
with
have been
homework,
down. We're
where
struggling
we had
with the mortgage.
heart-to-hearts
And
during
I,
her
she
teenage
paused,
years,
looking ashamed.
where we used to be close.
I've been thinking about
Mom,
selling Grandma's
she
ring.
began, fidgeting
My
with her
heart
coffee
sank.
cup.
Natalie,
I need to
that
ask
ring
you something.
isn't just
and I
valuable.
need you
It's your grandmother's
not
legacy.
to judge me.
It's meant to
I would
stay
never
in our
judge you,
family.
Natalie.
I know,
What's wrong?
Mom.
She
That's
took a
why I'm
deep
here.
breath.
I can't
Brett
sell
and I
it.
are having
I know
financial
I can't,
problems,
but I'm
the wedding
terrified
put
I'll
us
do
deep in
something
debt.
stupid when I'm
His
desperate.
sales numbers have
So
been
I'm
down.
asking
We're struggling with
She
the
looked
mortgage,
directly
and
at
at me with tears
she
in her
paused,
eyes.
looking
Can you
ashamed.
Keep it safe for
I've
me?
been thinking
Just
about
for a
selling
while,
Grandma's
until we get
ring.
back on our feet financially.
My heart sank.
I don't trust
Natalie,
myself right
that
now.
ring
I
isn't
reached
just
across
valuable.
the table and
It's your
held her
grandmother's
hand.
legacy.
Of course I'll keep
It's
it
meant
safe.
to stay in our family.
That's what mothers
I know,
do.
Mom.
That's
She
why
slid
I'm
the ring
here.
off her
I can't
finger
sell
and
it.
placed it in my
I know I
palm.
can't, but
Don't
I'm
tell
terrified I'll
Brett.
do something
He doesn't
stupid
know I
when I'm
gave it to
desperate.
you.
So I'm
If he
asking
asks,
you.
just tell
She
him you
looked
have
directly
no
at me
idea
with
where it
tears
is.
in her eyes.
He's been
Can you
pressuring
keep
me
it safe
about
for me?
selling it.
Just for
How
a
long
while,
do you think you'll
until we
need
get
me to
back on
keep
our
it?
feet
I don't know.
financially?
I don't
A few
trust
months
myself
maybe?
right now.
Until I feel
I reached
stronger.
across the table
Until
and
I'm
held
sure
her
I
hand.
won't give in to the
Of
pressure.
course I'll keep it safe.
Take all the time you
That's
need.
what mothers do.
I assured her.
She slid the
ring
ring
will
off
be
her
here
finger and
until
placed
you're
it in my
ready.
palm.
She hugged me
Don't
before
tell
she
Brett.
left.
He
A
doesn't
real
know
hug,
I gave
the
it
kind
to
she
you.
used to give me
If he
before
asks,
she
just
became
tell
so
him you have
distant.
no idea
Thank you,
where it
Mom.
is.
for
He's
understanding.
been pressuring me about
for not
selling
lecturing
it.
me
How
about
long
the
do you
wedding
think you'll need me to keep
or
it?
telling
I don't
me
know. I told
a few
you
months
so.
maybe
I love
until I
you,
feel
Natalie.
stronger.
That's
until
all
I'm
that
sure I won't
matters.
give in to
I
the
put the
pressure.
ring in my safe
Take all
that
the time
night.
you need. The
I
same
assured
safe
her.
where I kept
The
my
ring will
important
be
documents
here
and my
whenever
own
you're
jewelry.
ready. I felt
She
relieved
hugged
that
me
she
before she
trusted me
left.
with this.
A real hug.
That maybe
the kind
we
she
were
used to give
finding our
me
way
before
back
she
to each
became
other.
so distant.
That was 3 months
Thank
ago.
you, Mom.
Last week,
understanding.
Natalie called me on
For
Sunday
not
morning.
lecturing me about
Her
the
voice
wedding
was
costs.
completely different.
Or telling me,
sharp,
"I told you
accusatory.
so."
Nothing
I
like
love
the
you,
vulnerable
Natalie.
woman who'd
That's
sat at
all
my
that
kitchen
matters.
table. I put the ring
Mom,
in my safe
I
that
need
night.
Grandma's ring
The
back
same safe where I
today.
kept my
Of
important
course,
documents
sweetheart.
and my own jewelry.
everything all right?
I felt
Brett's
relieved
parents
that
are
she
visiting
trusted
next
me with
weekend.
this.
His
That
mother
maybe we were
specifically
finding
asked
our
to
way
see
back
the
to
ring.
each other.
She
That
wants
was
to
3
compare
months
it to
ago.
her mother's
Last
ring.
week,
I need it
Natalie
back
called me on
immediately.
Sunday morning.
I can bring it over this
Her
afternoon.
voice was completely
No, I'm coming
different.
there. I'll be
Sharp,
there in an hour.
accusatory.
She hung up
Nothing like
before
the
I could
vulnerable
respond.
woman who
When
sat
Natalie
at my
arrived,
kitchen
Brett
table.
was with her.
That should have
Mom,
been my first
I need
warning.
Grandma's ring
Brett
back
was tall,
today.
good-looking in
Of
a
course,
generic way,
sweetheart.
with the kind of
Is everything all
smile
right?
that never
Brett's
quite
parents are
reached his
visiting
eyes.
next weekend.
He'd always
His
been
mother
polite to me,
specifically
but
asked
distant,
to see the ring.
as if he was
She wants
performing
to
the
compare
role
it to
of
her mother's
dutiful
ring.
son-in-law.
I need it back
rather
immediately.
than genuinely
I can bring it over this
connecting.
afternoon.
Hi,
No,
Caroline.
I'm coming there.
He
I'll
said
be
with
there
that
in an
empty
hour.
smile.
She hung
Hope
up
you don't
before
mind
I
me
could
tagging
respond.
along. When
We're
Natalie
running
arrived,
errands.
Brett was with her.
Of course
that should
not.
have been my first
Come
warning.
in. I went
Brett
to my
was
bedroom
tall,
and opened the
good-looking in a
safe.
generic way,
My
with the
jewelry
kind of
box was
smile
there.
that never
Earrings,
quite
a pearl
reached his
necklace,
eyes.
a few other pieces.
He'd always been
but
polite
the small
to me, but
velvet
distant,
pouch where I'd placed
as if he
my
was
mother's
performing
ring
the
was
role of
gone.
dutiful
My heart
son-in-law,
started racing.
rather than
I checked every
genuinely
compartment.
connecting.
I pulled everything out of the
Caroline,
safe. The
he
ring
said with
wasn't
that empty
there.
smile.
I went back to the
Hope
living
you
room.
don't
my
mind me
hands
tagging
shaking.
along.
We're
Natalie,
running
I don't
errands.
understand. The ring isn't
Of
in the
course
safe.
not.
I put it there
Come
the
in.
night you gave
I
it
went
to
to my
me,
bedroom
and I
and
haven't
opened the
touched
safe.
it since.
My jewelry box was
Her
there.
expression
Earrings,
changed
a
instantly.
pearl necklace, a few other
Suspicion
pieces,
hardened her
but the
features.
small velvet
What do you mean
pouch
it's not
where I
there?
placed my
I mean,
mother's
it's gone.
ring was gone.
Someone must
My
have.
heart started
No one has
racing.
access to your
I checked
safe
every
except
compartment.
you, Mom.
I pulled
Her voice
everything
was
out
rising.
of the safe.
Where
the
is
ring
it?
wasn't there.
Did you sell
I
it?
went back to the
Did
living
you give
room,
it to
my
someone
hands
else?
shaking.
What?
Natalie,
I don't
know.
understand.
I would never.
The ring isn't in the safe.
Brett stood
I put
up.
it there the night
His
you
face,
gave it to
a
me,
mask of
and I
concern
haven't
that
touched
looked
it since.
rehearsed.
Caroline,
Her
this is a
expression
very
changed
valuable
instantly.
ring. If you needed
Suspicion
money, you should have
hardened
just
her
asked us
features.
for help
What do you mean
instead
it's
of,
not there?
I didn't
I
sell
mean,
the
it's
ring.
gone. My voice
Someone
was
must
loud
have.
now.
No one has
Desperate.
access to your
I
safe
don't know where
except
it is.
you, Mom.
But I
Her
did
voice
not
was
sell
rising.
it. Then
where
where
is
is
it?
it? Did you
Natalie
sell
was
it?
screaming
Did
now.
you give it to
Her
someone
face
else?
inches from
What?
mine.
Natalie,
You're the only
no,
one
I would
with
never.
access to that
Brett
safe.
stood up.
You
His
took
face,
it. A mask
You've always
of
been
concern
jealous
that
of my
looked
happiness,
rehearsed.
of my marriage,
Caroline,
of
this is a
everything I
very
have.
valuable ring.
Natalie,
if you
please,
needed money,
you have
you
to
should have just
believe me.
asked us for
You took
help
the one
instead
thing
of.
that mattered to
I
me.
didn't sell the ring.
Grandma's ring.
My voice was
You're a
loud now.
thief. Desperate.
Honey,
I don't
Brett
know where
put
it
his
is,
hand on Natalie's
but
shoulder.
I did not sell
his
it.
voice
Then
dripping
where is
with
it?
false
Natalie
sympathy.
was screaming
Maybe
now.
we should call
Her
the
face
police.
inches
Let
from
them
mine.
investigate
You're the
properly.
only one with access
I'm sure
to
your
that
mother
safe.
has a reasonable
You took it.
explanation.
You've
But his
always been
eyes,
jealous of my
when they met
happiness, of
mine,
my marriage,
were
of
cold
everything
and
I have.
calculating.
Natalie,
Something was
please,
wrong.
you have to believe
Something
me.
about this
You took
whole
the one thing that
situation
mattered
felt
to me.
staged.
Grandma's ring.
Yes.
You're a
Natalie
thief.
pulled out her phone.
Honey,
I'm
Brett
calling the
put his
police.
hand on
I want to
Natalie's
file
shoulder.
a report
His
for
voice
stolen
dripping
property.
with false
I
sympathy.
stood there in my
Maybe
own
we
living
should
room,
call the
watching my
police.
daughter
Let
call
them
the police
investigate
on me.
properly.
Every
I'm sure
word
your
out of
mother
her
has a
mouth
reasonable
felt like a physical
explanation.
blow.
But his
She
eyes,
actually
when
believed
they
I'd
met
stolen
mine,
from her.
were cold
My own
and
daughter thought I was a
calculating.
thief. Something was wrong.
The police
Something about
arrived
this
30
whole
minutes
situation
later.
felt
Two
staged.
officers, a younger
Yes.
man named Officer
Natalie pulled out her
Rodriguez
phone.
and an older
I'm
woman
calling the
named
police.
Officer
I want to
Patterson.
file a report
They took
for stolen
statements
property.
from all of us.
I stood there
Natalie's
in my own
was
living room,
furious
watching my
and
daughter
detailed.
call the police on
Brett's
me.
was sorrowful
Every
and
word out of her
concerned.
mouth felt
Mine
like a
was
physical
shocked
blow.
and desperate. She
Officer
actually
Patterson
believed
took
I'd
me
stolen
aside
from her.
My
Mrs.
own
Fletcher,
daughter
I
thought
have
I was
to
a
ask.
thief. Is there any possibility
police
you
arrived
sold
30
or
minutes
pawned
later.
the ring and
Two
forgot
officers,
about it?
a younger younger
Sometimes
man
people
named
under
Officer
financial
Rodriguez
stress.
and an older
I'm
woman
not
named
under
Officer
financial stress,
Patterson.
I said firmly.
They took
I have my
statements from all
teacher's
of
pension.
us. Natalie's
I
was
own this
furious
house
and
outright.
detailed.
I have no
Brett's
debts.
was sorrowful
I had
and
no
concerned.
reason to sell anything.
Mine was shocked and desperate.
And you're certain you
Officer
put the ring in
Patterson
the
took
safe?
me aside.
Absolutely
Mrs. Fletcher,
certain.
I have to ask.
She looked at me for a
is
long
there any
moment.
possibility
The
you
problem is,
sold or
ma'am,
pawned
you're the
ring
only
and
one with
forgot about
access
it?
to that safe.
Sometimes people under
Unless someone
financial
else
stress
knows the combination.
I'm not
No one
under
else
financial
knows it.
stress.
After
I
the
said
police
firmly.
left, I have my
promising
teacher's
to
pension.
investigate. Natalie
I
stood
own this
in my
house
doorway.
outright.
I can't
have no
believe you
debts.
do this to me.
I had no
can't
reason to
believe you'd
sell
steal from
anything.
your own daughter.
And you're
Natalie,
certain you put
please,
the ring
I'm
in the
begging you
safe?
to believe me.
Absolutely
I didn't take
certain.
that ring.
She looked at
Then
me
where
for a
is
long
it, Mom?
moment. Tell me where it is,
ma'am.
You're the only one with
left.
access
I
to
closed
that
the door
safe.
and sank to the
Unless
floor.
someone else knows
my back
the combination.
against the wall.
No one
I
else
cried
knows
harder
it.
than
After
I
the
cried
police
since my
left,
mother's funeral.
promising to
That
investigate,
night,
I couldn't sleep.
Natalie stood
I
in
went
my
through
doorway.
every scenario
believe
in my
you'd do
mind.
this to me.
Had someone
I can't
broken
believe
in?
you'd steal
There
from
was
your
no
own
sign
daughter.
of forced
Natalie,
entry.
please,
Had I
I'm
moved
begging
the
you to
ring
believe
somewhere
me.
else
I
and
didn't take
forgotten?
that ring.
I searched
Then
every
where is
drawer,
it, Mom?
every box.
Tell me where it is.
Every possible
She and
place.
Brett left. I
Nothing.
closed the door and sank
At
to the
3
floor.
a.m., sitting
my
at my
back
kitchen
against the
table
wall
with cold
and
tea,
cried harder
I
than
decided
I cried
to do
since my
something
mother's
I'd
funeral.
resisted for
That
years.
night, I couldn't sleep.
I called my sister
I
Margaret.
went through every
Margaret lived in
scenario
Portland.
in my mind.
We'd been estranged
Had someone
for
broken
15
in
years over
there
a
was no
family
sign
dispute.
of forced
I can barely
entry.
remember the
Had I
origins
moved the
of
ring
now.
somewhere else
But
and
Margaret
forgotten?
had always
I
been the
searched
smart
every
one.
drawer,
The
every
logical
box,
one. Every
the one who
possible
saw through
place.
people's bullshit.
Nothing.
Caroline?
At 3
Her voice
a.m.,
was
sitting at my
sleepy and
kitchen table
confused.
with cold
Is everything
tea,
all right?
I decided
Maggie,
to do
I need
something
your
I'd
help.
resisted for
Something
years.
terrible has
I called
happened.
my sister
I
Margaret.
told her everything.
Margaret lived in
The
Portland.
ring,
We'd been
Natalie's
estranged
visit
for
15
months ago.
years over
the
a family
accusation,
dispute.
the police.
I can barely
When I
remember the
finished,
origins
Margaret was
of
silent
now.
for a long moment.
But Margaret
You
had
said
always
Brett
been the
came
smart
with her
one
to pick up
the
the
logical
ring?
one.
Yes.
The one who
And
saw
Brett knew
through
about the
people's
financial
bullshit.
problems.
Caroline?
Natalie said he'd
Her
been
voice was
pressuring her to
sleepy and
sell the
confused.
ring.
Is everything all
Caroline,
right?
this is going to
Maggie,
sound harsh.
I need your help.
But I need you to
Something
hear me.
terrible has happened.
When people are
I told her
desperate for money,
everything.
especially
The ring,
people like Brett,
Natalie's visit
who care
3
about
months ago,
appearances,
the
they do
accusation, the
desperate
police.
things. When I finished,
saying?
Margaret was silent
I'm
for a long
saying,
moment. Maybe
you
you
said
should ask
Brett
yourself
came with
who
her to pick up the
benefits
ring?
if the ring
Yes.
is gone
And Brett
you're
knew
blamed
about the
for it.
financial problems?
You think Brett took
Natalie
the ring?
said he'd been pressuring
I think it's
her
worth
to
considering.
sell the ring.
Insurance fraud
Caroline,
is
this is
common.
going to sound
They
harsh,
report the ring
but I need
stolen
you to hear
from
me.
you.
File a
When
claim,
people are desperate
collect the
for
money, and you take
especially
the blame.
people like
The
Brett,
idea made
who
me
care about
sick,
appearances,
but it also made horrible
they do
sense.
desperate
How would
things.
Brett have
What
accessed
are you
my
saying?
safe? Does
I'm
Natalie know
saying,
your combination?
Maybe you should ask
I
yourself
thought back.
who benefits.
Years ago,
if the
I'd
ring
written
is
it down
gone
and given it to
and
her
you're
in
blamed
case of
for it.
emergency.
You think Brett took
Yes.
the ring?
She does.
I think it's worth considering.
Then it's possible she
Insurance
gave it to
fraud is
Brett without
common.
realizing what
They
he planned
report
to
the
do.
ring stolen from
The
you.
next morning, I
File
called
a
Officer
claim,
Patterson
collect the
directly.
money, and you
I
take
think
the
I
blame.
know who took the ring.
The idea made
She came
me
to my
sick,
house that
but it also
afternoon.
made horrible
I
sense.
explained my
How would
theory
Brett have
about Brett,
accessed my
about the
safe?
financial
Does Natalie
pressure,
know your
about
combination?
the insurance fraud
I thought back.
possibility.
Years
She listened
ago, I'd
carefully,
written it down and
taking
given it to
notes.
her in case of
Mrs.
emergency.
Fletcher,
This is
yes,
all speculation.
she does.
Do you have
Then
any
it's
proof?
possible she gave it to
No.
Brett without
But if they
realizing
file an
what he planned to
insurance
do.
claim,
That would be
the
proof
next
of
morning
motive,
I called
wouldn't it?
Officer
It would be
Patterson directly.
suspicious,
I
certainly.
think I know who
Let
took
me
the
look into
ring.
this.
She came to
2
my
days
house
later,
that afternoon.
Natalie called me.
I explained my
Her voice
theory
was
about
different
Brett,
again.
about
Not
the financial
angry this
pressure,
time, but confused.
about the insurance
Almost
fraud
frightened.
possibility.
Mom, I need to
She
talk to
listened
you.
carefully.
Can I come over?
Taking notes.
Alone this time.
Mrs.
Of course.
Fletcher, when
This
she
is all
arrived, she looked like
speculation.
she'd been crying
Do you have
for
any
days.
proof? No.
Her eyes were swollen.
But if they file
Her
an
skin
insurance
was
claim,
blotchy.
that would be proof
I
of
remembered
motive, wouldn't it?
something.
It
She
would be
whispered.
suspicious.
Something I'd
certainly.
completely
Let me look
forgotten.
into this.
My heart
2 days
started
later,
pounding.
Natalie
What
called
did you
me.
remember?
Her voice was different again.
3 months
Not
ago,
angry
I came
this
here.
time, but
I gave you the
confused,
ring to keep
almost
safe
frightened.
because I was
Mom,
afraid
I
I'd
need to
sell
talk
it.
to you.
I
Can
asked you
come
not
over?
to tell Brett.
Alone this
She
time.
looked up at
Of
me,
course.
horror
When
dawning
she
on her
arrived,
face.
she looked like she'd
Oh
been
my God.
crying for days.
Mom, I forgot.
Her eyes were
I completely
swollen.
forgot.
Her
I'd given
skin
it to
was
you.
blotchy.
You forgot.
I remembered something.
I've
She
been so
whispered.
stressed,
Something I'd
so
completely
overwhelmed
forgotten.
with work and
My
money
heart started
problems.
pounding.
And
What
Brett
did you
kept asking
remember?
about the ring. When
3
was I going
months
to
ago,
wear
I
it?
came here.
Where was it?
I gave you the ring
I started
to keep
telling him
safe
I'd because I was
misplaced
afraid
it.
I'd sell
That
it.
it was in a jewelry
I asked
box
you not
somewhere.
to tell Brett.
I
She
convinced
looked up
myself
at me,
that was
horror
true.
dawning on her face.
And then when his mother
Oh my
wanted to
God.
see it, the pressure
Mom, I
just-
forgot.
I
I completely
snapped.
forgot. I'd given
I
it
couldn't
to you.
admit to Brett that I'd
You
been lying.
forgot. So I came here to
I've
get
been
it
so
back.
stressed,
And when you said
so
it was missing, I
overwhelmed
just
with work and money
She was
problems.
crying now, huge,
And Brett kept
gasping
asking
sobs.
about the ring.
I accused
When was
you
I
of
going to wear
stealing
it?
I
Where
called
was
the police
it?
on my
I
own
started
mother.
telling him I'd
What
misplaced
is wrong with
it?
me? That it was in a
I sat
jewelry
down next
box
to her
somewhere.
and pulled
I
her
convinced
into my
myself
arms.
that was
You're
true.
under tremendous
And then when his
stress.
mother wanted
People
to see
make
it, the
mistakes
pressure
when
just
they're overwhelmed.
I snapped.
But where's the ring,
I couldn't
Mom?
admit to Brett
If I
that
gave
I'd
it to
been
you
lying.
3 months
So
ago
I
and
came
you
here
put
to
it
get
in
it
the
back.
safe.
And
Where
when
did
you
it
said
go?
it was missing,
That's when my phone rang.
She was
Officer
crying
Patterson.
now, huge
Mrs. Fletcher,
gasping
you need to
sobs.
come down to the
I
station.
accused
We
you of
found your
stealing.
ring.
I called
You
the police
found
on my
it?
own mother.
Where?
What is
I'd
wrong
rather
with me?
explain in
I
person.
sat down next
Can
to
you
her
come now
and pulled her
and bring
into
your
my
daughter?
arms.
You're
At
under
the
police
tremendous
station.
stress.
Officer
People make
Patterson led us
mistakes
into a
when they're
small
overwhelmed.
interview room.
But where's the
On
ring,
the table
Mom?
was a
If I
plastic
gave it to you
evidence
3
bag.
months ago and you put it
Inside
in the
was my
safe,
mother's
where
ring.
did it go? Where did you
That's
find
when my
it?
phone
I
rang.
asked.
Officer
In a
Patterson.
pawn shop in
Mrs. Fletcher,
Tacoma.
you need
It
to
was
come
sold
down to the
2 months
station.
ago.
We found
2
your ring.
months?
Natalie
You
looked
found
confused.
it? Where?
But I only asked
I'd
Mom
rather
for it back
explain in
last
person.
week.
Can
Officer
you come
Patterson
now
pulled out a
and
paper.
bring your daughter?
The person
At
who
the police
pawned it
station
presented
Officer
this
Patterson
photograph
led
as
us
proof
into a
of
small
ownership.
interview room.
She turned the paper
On the
toward
table
us.
was a plastic
It was a photo
evidence
of the
bag.
ring on a hand.
Inside was my
Natalie's
mother's ring.
hand from one of her
Where did you
Instagram
find it?
posts.
I asked.
But I didn't
pawn
pawn it in Tacoma.
Natalie
It was
said.
sold 2
I
months
didn't even
ago.
remember
2
I'd given it to
months?
Mom
Natalie
until
looked
today.
confused.
No,
But
you
I
didn't
only
pawn
asked
it.
Mom for it back
But someone
last
with
week.
access to your
Officer
social
Patterson
media,
pulled out a paper
to your mother's
the
house,
person who
and to
pawned
information
it
about the
presented this
ring
photograph
did.
as proof
Brett,
of ownership.
I said.
She
Officer
turned the
Patterson
paper toward
nodded.
us. We
It was a
pulled the
photo
pawn
of the
shop
ring on a
security
hand.
footage.
Natalie's
Brett Lawrence
hand from one
pawned
of her
this ring
Instagram
on March
posts.
15th.
But I didn't
That's 2
pawn
weeks
it.
after your mother
Natalie
says you
said.
gave it to her for
I didn't even
safekeeping.
remember I'd given it to
Natalie
Mom
went
until
pale.
today.
That's impossible.
No, you didn't
Brett
pawn
didn't
it.
know I'd
Someone
given
with
it to
access
Mom.
to your social
I
media,
specifically didn't
to your
tell
mother's
her.
house,
Are you
and to
certain
information
about
about the ring.
Natalie
did.
thought back.
Brett,
we were at
I
dinner.
said.
Maybe
Officer
a week
Patterson
after I gave
nodded.
Mom the ring.
We pulled
Brett
the pawn
asked where
shop
it was.
security
I
footage.
said it was safe.
Brett Lawrence
He kept
pawned
pushing,
this ring
asking
on March
specifically
15th.
where.
That
I
was
was 2
tired
weeks
of
after
lying.
your mother says
So
you
I
gave
said
it to her
she
for
stopped, her
safekeeping.
face crumpling.
Natalie went
I
pale.
said my
That's
mom was
impossible.
keeping it safe
Brett
for
didn't
me.
know
And did you
I'd given
mention
it to
why?
Mom.
I said I didn't want to be
specifically
tempted
didn't
to sell it. That
Are
we
you
needed
certain
to be
about
smart
that?
with money.
Natalie
So
thought
he knew
back.
exactly
We
where
were
the
at
ring
dinner.
was.
Maybe a
and
week
why it
after
was
I
there.
gave Mom the ring.
I felt
Brett
sick.
asked where it was.
How did he get into
I
my
said it was
safe?
safe.
He
Officer
kept pushing,
Patterson looked
asking
at me.
specifically
Does your daughter
where?
know your
I was
combination?
tired of lying.
Yes.
So I
I gave
said-
it to her
she
years
stopped,
ago
her
for
face crumpling.
emergencies.
Is
I
it
said my
possible
mom was
Brett could
keeping
have
it
seen
safe
it?
for me.
Maybe
And
written
did you
down in a
mention
phone
why?
or in a
I said I didn't
planner.
want to be
Natalie
tempted to
pulled out her
sell it,
phone with shaking
that we
hands.
needed to be smart
She
with
opened her
money.
notes app and
So
scrolled.
he knew exactly
There
where the
it
ring
was.
was.
Mom's
Why it
safe
was there.
combination
I felt sick.
0823.
How did he get into my
61,
safe?
My birthday.
Officer Patterson
I wrote it
looked at
down
me.
so I wouldn't
Does your
forget
daughter
in
know
case
your
of
combination?
emergency, she
Yes.
whispered.
I gave
Brett
it to
has
her years
access
ago
to my
for
phone.
emergencies.
We share
Is it
passwords for
possible
everything.
Brett
He could have
could
seen this
seen it?
any time.
Maybe written down in
the
a
pieces
phone
were falling
or
into
in a
place.
planner.
Natalie
Brett had
pulled out her
known
phone
where
with
the
shaking
ring
hands.
was. He
She
had
opened
the
her notes
combination,
app and scrolled.
and he'd been
There it
pressuring
was.
Natalie to sell
Mom's
it
safe
because he was
combination
planning to sell it himself.
0823
There's more.
61.
Officer
My
Patterson
birthday.
said.
We
I
checked
wrote it
Brett's
down so I
finances.
wouldn't forget in case
He's not
of
just
emergency.
like having a
She
bad
whispered.
sales quarter.
Brett has
He's been
access to
fired
my phone.
from 3
We share
pharmaceutical
passwords
for
companies
everything. He could
in
have
the
seen
past
this
2
any
years
time
for
The pieces were
falsifying
falling
sales
into
reports.
place.
Brett
He
had
has gambling
known where
debts
the ring
totaling
was.
over
He had the combination,
$120,000.
and he'd been pressuring Natalie
He's
to sell it
desperate. Natalie
because he was
looked like she
planning
might
to
be
sell it
sick.
himself.
I didn't know
There's
any of
more.
this.
Officer
We believe
Patterson
he
said.
pawned the ring
We
to
checked
cover
Brett's
immediate
finances.
debts, then
He's not
planned
just
to
like
either
having
claim it
a
was
bad
lost and
sales
file an
quarter.
insurance
He's
claim,
been fired
or
from
blame your
3
mother for its
pharmaceutical
disappearance
companies
to avoid
in the
suspicion.
past 2 years.
When you demanded
for
the ring back,
falsifying
he
sales
panicked and let you
reports.
accuse your mother,
He has gambling
hoping the
debts
police would
totaling
accept that
over
explanation.
$120,000.
He let me
accuse my own mother
He's
of being a
desperate.
thief.
Natalie looked like
Natalie
she might be
said
sick.
slowly.
I didn't know
He
any
let
of
me
this.
call the police on
We
her.
believe he
He
pawned
watched
the
me
ring to
scream
cover
at her
immediate
and call
debts,
her jealous
then planned
and
to either
horrible.
claim it was
He knew
lost
the
and
whole
file an
time where the
insurance
ring
claim,
was, and he said
or blame
nothing.
your mother
I
for its
reached for her
disappearance
hand.
to avoid suspicion.
She gripped mine so
When
tightly
you demanded
it
the ring
hurt.
back, he
We've issued
panicked
a
and let you
warrant
accuse
for
your
Brett's
mother,
arrest.
hoping the police
Officer
would
Patterson
accept that
said.
explanation.
He'll be charged with theft,
He let me
fraud,
accuse
and
my
a few
own
other
mother
things.
of being a thief.
Mrs. Fletcher, the ring
Natalie
is yours.
said slowly.
We finished
He let
processing
me call
it
the
as
police
evidence.
on her.
He watched
She handed
me
me the
scream at
plastic
her
bag.
and call her
I held
jealous
my mother's
and
ring
horrible.
for the first
He
time
knew the
in
whole
months,
time where the ring
and I
was, and he
cried.
said nothing.
In the car,
I
Natalie
reached for her
couldn't
hand.
stop apologizing.
She gripped mine so
Mom,
tightly
I don't know
it
how to
hurt.
make this right.
We've issued
I
a
said terrible
warrant for
things to
Brett's
you.
arrest.
I believe
Officer
the worst
Patterson
about
said.
you. He'll be
I
charged
chose
with
him over
theft,
you.
fraud,
You
and
were
a few other
manipulated
things.
by someone you
Mrs.
trusted.
Fletcher, the ring
I
is
said.
yours.
That's not the
We
same as
finished
choosing him
processing it
over
as
me.
evidence. How can
She
you
handed
forgive
me the plastic bag.
I pulled into my
I held
driveway
my mother's
and
ring
turned to
for
look
the
at my
first
daughter.
time in months.
Because 3 months
And I
ago,
cried.
you
In
came
the car,
to me in
Natalie
your
couldn't
darkest
stop
moment
apologizing
and asked for help. Mom,
You
I don't
trusted
know
me
how to
with
make
something
this
precious
right.
when
I
you
said
couldn't
terrible
trust
things to
yourself.
you. I
That's That's
believe
the
the
Natalie
worst
I
about
know.
you.
That's
I
my
chose
daughter.
him over you.
The woman who
You were
screamed at me last
manipulated
week
by someone you trusted.
That wasn't you.
I said.
That's not the same as choosing him over
manipulation.
How can
She
you
cried
forgive
in
me?
my arms like
I
she
pulled
used
into
to
my
when she
driveway
was little.
and turned to look
Brett
at my
was
daughter.
arrested the next day
Because
at his
3
office.
months ago, the local
You came
news
to me
covered
in your
it.
darkest
Pharmaceutical
moment and asked
sales
for help.
rep arrested
You
for
trusted
theft
me with
and
something
fraud.
precious
The
when
house
you
of
couldn't
cards that
trust
was his
yourself.
life collapsed
That's
quickly.
the Natalie I know.
3 other women
That's my
came
daughter.
forward claiming
The woman
he'd
who
scammed
screamed at
them
me
in
last
various
week?
ways.
That wasn't
His
you.
gambling debts
That was
were
fear
even
and
worse
stress
than the
and
police initially
manipulation.
thought. Natalie
She cried
filed
in my
for divorce
arms
like she used to
immediately.
when she was
She
little.
moved into my
Brett was
spare
arrested the
bedroom while
next
she
day at
sorted
his
out her
office.
life.
The local
The first
news
few
covered
weeks
it.
were hard.
Pharmaceutical
She was
sales
grieving
rep
not just the
arrested
loss
for
of her
theft
marriage
and fraud.
but the
house of
realization
cards that
of
was
who
his
she'd
life
actually
collapsed
married.
quickly. She'd been
Three
so
other
blinded
women
by
came
his
forward
charm,
claiming
his
he'd
confidence,
scammed them
his
in
seeming
various
success,
ways.
that she'd
His
never
gambling
looked deeper.
debts were
How did
even
I not
worse
see
than
it?
the police
She asked me
initially
one night
thought.
over tea
Natalie
at the kitchen
filed
table
for divorce
because
immediately.
he was very
She
good at
moved into
hiding
my
it.
spare
And
bedroom
because
while
you
she
wanted to
sorted out
believe
her
in the
life.
life you'd built
The first
together.
few weeks were
There's
hard.
no shame in that.
She was
I
grieving not
almost
just the
lost you
loss of her
because of him.
marriage,
But
the
you didn't.
realization
I'm
of
right
who
here.
she'd actually
3 months
married.
later, Natalie
She'd been
moved
so
into a small
blinded by
apartment
his
near the
charm,
hospital
his
where she
confidence,
works.
his
She's
seeming
rebuilding her
success
credit,
that she'd
her
never
life,
looked deeper.
her sense
How
of
did
self.
I not see it?
She
She
visits
asked me
for
one
dinner
night over
twice a
tea
week,
at the kitchen
and we
table.
talk about real
because
things now.
he was very
Not
good
just
at
small
hiding
talk,
it.
but
And because
honest
you wanted to
conversations.
believe in the
Last
life
week
you'd
she
built
brought up
together.
the ring.
There's
Mom,
no shame
I've
in
been
that.
thinking.
I
I
almost
don't want
lost you
Grandma's
because of
ring
him.
anymore.
But you
My
didn't.
heart sank.
I'm right here.
Natalie.
3
Let me
months
finish.
later,
I
Natalie
don't want
moved
it
into a small
because every
apartment
time I
near the
look at it,
hospital where
I'll
she
remember
works.
Brett.
She's
the
rebuilding
lies,
her credit
and how
her
I
life,
treated you.
her
I never
sense of self.
valued it for
She
the right
visits for dinner
reasons.
twice a
I
week,
liked how
and
it
we talk
looked,
about real
not
things
what it
now.
represented.
Not just
the
small
ring
talk,
once
but
symbolized
honest
love and
conversations.
partnership.
Last week,
Something
she brought up
Natalie
the ring.
lost sight of
Mom,
with Brett.
I've been thinking.
Now she's
I
rebuilding.
don't want Grandma's ring
learning that
anymore.
real love
My
isn't
heart sank.
perfection,
Natalie,
but perseverance.
let me finish.
I wear
I
my
don't want
mother's
it
ring
because
and
every
think
time
of
I
how
look
we
at it,
found our
I'll
way
remember
back.
Brett, the
Brett's
lies,
in prison and
how I
Natalie's
treated
healing.
you. I never
She's seeing
valued
someone
it
kind
for
who
the right
truly values
reasons.
her.
I liked
Love
how it
endures
looked,
through storms.
not what it
Forgives,
represented.
rebuilds,
The ring
and
once
never gives
symbolized
up.
love and partnership, something Natalie lost sight of with Brett. Now she's rebuilding, learning that real love isn't perfection, but perseverance. I wear my mother's ring and think of how we found our way back. Brett's in prison and Natalie's healing. She's seeing someone kind who truly values her. Love endures through storms. It forgives, rebuilds, and never gives up.